All right, the last set that we're going to talk about are called other solar system objects. We don't even have a good name for them, so we call it other solar system objects is the name of this section. So the first other solar system objects we're going to talk about are dwarf planets. And dwarf planets are made of rock and ice. The first one is Ceres, which is actually really big. And it's the largest of the asteroids in the asteroid belt, which is between Mars and Jupiter. So it's actually pretty big. The next one is Pluto, and I just hate that Pluto is in this group. I think that people my age have a hard time letting that go. That Pluto was downgraded from a planet to a dwarf planet, so not a planet anymore. And it's not a planet because of its low density, it's small, and it hasn't cleared its path, meaning in its orbit there's still other junk that it hasn't fully picked up after itself yet. And so it's not considered a planet. Actually, once it was classified as a planet, it wasn't even a planet for a whole year of its own lap around the sun because its orbit is so big. It was, I think, less than a year that for Pluto's time that it was a planet. Kind of sad. It is smaller than Earth's moon, but it has its own moon. It has its own moon named Charon, and I will actually show you that in a second. But if you were to compare the real planets with dwarf planets, you would say that they are both spheres. They orbit the sun, and um, and they're not satellites, meaning they are not looping around another body besides the sun. But a real planet has fully cleared its path of debris, and a dwarf planet has not. So I will show you uh, Pluto's Charon planet. Oh, this is like not the best picture. But if this is Pluto here, this is how big its moon looks. Its moon is not quite its size, but it is a big moon, and it's very close by. So can you imagine like being here and waking up and seeing the moon be that close and that big? It would just be amazing. I don't know. I just think it's cool. I don't know why. And I will forever be pulling that Pluto shouldn't have gotten downgraded from to a planet, not a planet. Okay. So small solar system bodies can are like asteroids and meteorites, and they're made of mostly rock. So asteroids are quite large, and this try to hang with me here while I say four names for nearly the same thing. Okay. An asteroid is a very big chunk of rock up in out in space. Okay. When a piece of that breaks off, and it's a smaller piece, but it's still traveling through space, it's called a meteoroid. Okay. Um, if that smaller piece then comes into the Earth's atmosphere, now we're calling it a meteor. If that actually connects with the ground and actually hits us, now we're calling it a meteorite. So, big, giant rock out in space, asteroid. A piece of that breaks off, we're talking a meteoroid. A piece of that goes through the atmosphere, now we're calling it a meteor. And a piece of that hits the ground, now we're calling it a meteorite. All right. The next thing, and I know you're going, that's like four names for the same thing. I kind of agree, but you know what? You don't mess with NASA, okay? You just don't. You just go with it, and those are the names, and you go with it. All right. The next thing is that you need to know is there is a belt called the Kuiper Belt, and this is out by Neptune, and it's a belt of basically rock and ice. So, what's the difference between the asteroid belt and the Kuiper Belt? The asteroid belt is rocky planetesimals, like miniature, tiny little planets that don't count as planets. Asteroid belt is rocky planetesimals, and it's between Mars and Jupiter. The Kuiper belt is a ring of small bodies made of mostly ice and rock, but it's beyond the orbit of Neptune. Okay, last one that we're going to talk about here are comets. Comets are made of dust and ice, and as they orbit around the sun will kind of light them up and burn it a little bit, and so the tails always kind of blow off away from the sun. So the tails will always face away from the sun if the comet has a tail right then. Sometimes it's so far away it doesn't really have much of a tail. So what else do you need to know about that? If the Earth travels through the path of a comet, and so that dust comes in our atmosphere, then you will have a small, like, meteor shower, like a small shower where you'll see those particles as they're traveling through our atmosphere at a hyper speed and burning up. It'll light it up really bright in the sky and be a meteor shower. So a lot of times meteors don't connect with the ground to become a meteorite because they burned up in the meantime on their way down, because it's just so hot as it comes down. Fun side fact is Halley's Comet. Back in 1985, I may or may not have been very alive at that point and had seen that when I was a kid. It comes about every 75 years. It's a very big comet. And so it will be around, I said 75, I meant 76. It'll be around again in 2061. I hope I'm there again for round 2. And in 2061, you'll be able to see it again.